Everyone, welcome to the latest edition of AI Insiders from AI Marketers Guild by Marketecture, getting used to the new brand name and branding. I was at an event this week where the most frequent comment I got was, "I can't believe you got shirts made that quickly." And so the marketers in the room will appreciate that. I was like, it was like I've already had these shirts for 10 days. They're already on a new laundry cycle, which is so I
Nice.
promise I don't just have one when you see me in these all the time. But less here to talk about me and more here to learn from Earle Richards Jr. Got to give a shout out to an ardent friend of the community, Mark Goldberg, who introduced us. And what I love is some of the serendipity here. You know, Earle is not someone I've had the pleasure of knowing a long time, and there are some people in this virtual room I've known 20 years. But Earle and I just met, and as soon as we talked, I was learning things, and I'm like Earle, if I'm this interested in learning all this, then I'd imagine quite a few community members will be too. And
Yeah.
so I'll let you give yourself a proper introduction, just as a kind of like the note of housekeeping, especially for any of the newcomers here. Welcome. Especially if you joined since we became part of the Marketecture family, then hope to get to know you. We're here every week, and these are one of the things I even stressed to the Marketecture team when I was talking to them about like what we're about, and I said these are not webinars; these are
hmm
community conversations. So it's like if we ever swapped out Zoom for something else, if we ever changed the flow, I'm like the community conversation is so key to this, and it's how so many of the relationships here are built, and it's even wonderful seeing folks like I mean Catherine Montgomery and Jack Myers is just coming in, and I'm probably missing a couple folks who've been past speakers here and still coming to learn from others and share things. So Catherine, I've mentioned your session on a few occasions, and maybe we need an update of that. But anyway, Earle, I've talked too much. Please welcome. Who are you? What are you doing here?
Everybody, my name is Earle Richards Jr., working on the branding. So basically, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm just a fan of technology. So to give you a little bit about my background, I was born and raised in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I'm an island boy. And once I saw Home Alone 2, I knew that I had to move to New York. So after college, I came to New York, and I've been in the advertising game since then. I've worked in all parts of the business, whether it's on an agency side, working with different clients from different verticals, or working at the ad tech side, or working on the publisher side. I've seen all the above, always working in the role of data and analytics. And this is back when we were still using Urchin before it became Google Analytics. Just to give you an idea of my pedigree.
Oh wow, yeah, I've heard that name in a while.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is like, I've been in the game for long enough. And one of the unique opportunities I've had in my career is that, like I said, I've worked in different verticals, different brands, and different agencies, and I've seen what works, what doesn't work, especially from a technology perspective. And so I want to give you that. I want to give everyone in that background and context. Because my career has been in analytics, people think of me as a data guy and the numbers guy. That is a wrong branding. Okay. I am not that guy. I only use data because I like to win arguments, right? And I like to have facts on my side. So I learned the tools so I can get the data so I can win an argument. That's what I went to school for, to be a lawyer. But this will have to do. So what I'm going to be doing during this community talk is presenting an argument, my case for how to look at AI. Because, David and I, you and I connected. And one of the things that through Mark Goldberg, one of the things that connected with how you're putting it is like, we're all trying to figure out how to use AI. We know it's big. We know there's so much potential there, and all of us in different roles, whether it's in our personal lives or in our businesses, we're trying to figure out how to use AI. And I want to preface this by saying there's not one right way. And anybody who tells you that, they're trying to sell you something, which is fine. I'm a marketer. I'm okay with it. But just understand, I'll show you my way that's been working for me. And I'm welcome any questions and any rebuttals or any considerations that for my blind spots. Hopefully that helps cover a little bit of everything.
Love it, and also, I mean, I hate the phrase like-minded because, like, the point is, I want to get some different points of view. But this, like, no, I just, I feel a lot of that pain, and so just I'm glad that you're setting it up,
Yeah.
opening up to all the, because we have there are 40 different ways to use AI, and then some just from the folks in this room. So.
Right. Yeah. Let's go with the branding, open-minded, but values-driven. Can you tell I've been in marketing for a while?
A little bit.
Awesome. How do you want to set this up? I can go ahead and pitch, or you can ask me questions. Definitely up to you.
So how are you? How are you using AI these days? And what I'd also love to hear a bit about, like some of the workflows that you've been setting up, and anything you want to share there, any show and tell, totally welcome.
Sure, absolutely. I can definitely tell you how I've been using AI. Okay, so I've been thinking about how I want to have this conversation and kind of introduce it, because one of the things, I'm driven by my curiosity, always have since I was a little kid. I was a Lego kid, and that never stopped. Like, I broke my first computer and I had to fix it. So now I'm like, I know how to fix computers because I broke it. So I'm a tinkerer and whatnot. And so when AI first came out, it didn't first came out, but when it first came out and everybody learned about it, ChatGPT, I was like, let me play with this and see what we can do with it. And to answer your initial question, how have I been using it? I've used AI to get jobs, to reconnect with people, to expand my network, I've literally gotten clients using AI. And the big thing I want to make sure that everybody knows from this conversation is that it's not about the actual tool that you're using, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity. I'm agnostic in that regard. What I'm trying to communicate to people, what my argument is for my case is, we should think about how to hire AI as your guy. Mm-hmm. In the hotel business, when I was in high school, I used to be a bellboy. Before we were up to a front desk manager, we used to have a concierge. And you go to the concierge when you need special accommodations or when you need reservations for the certain show, etc. So that concierge would be well connected and know people, and he would always say, or she would always say, I got a guy for that. And so my mindset and how I approach AI is, how can I use AI to get it done? So instead of saying I have a guy for that, I have AI for that. So that's been my mindset. So for me, the way I use AI is I think about what I want to get done and how can I build or use AI to get it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think the more you want to get into, I mean, some of these areas, like the two that probably are most relatable for everyone, like probably everyone in this room has either been looking for a job or a client, in at least within the past couple of years. And so I'd love to hear more about what that process is like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've been talking to people. Obviously, I got a chance to meet you through Mark, and even talking to Mark about like how we can use AI for his workflow. I just been kind of curious to see how people have been using AI. And what I found is that there's a spectrum that I've been seeing, a range from AI to like anxiety and fear. AI is going to take my job, to overexcitement and isn't that AI will replace me in my job, so I don't have to do the work, or I can reduce staff, and both extremes. And I think usually people are somewhere in the middle, depending on where they are in their careers and their lives, etc. And so the way I look at it is like, how can I use AI to help me? Right? It's a different mindset. So my whole theme is AI is not just a tool. If you build it correctly and use it correctly, it could be your team. And that's the idea. It's not trying to replace you, because I know, David, you and I touched on this a few conversations ago. I think when Matt Braden was featured in speaking. It's the way how you look at it, right? If you look at it as the enemy, then you're going to treat it that way. You're going to be fearful of it. If you treat it as an ally, you're going to figure out, how can I work with this to help me accomplish whatever goals I have? And back to the relevant conversation, like when it comes to getting new clients or getting a new job or switching careers, if you're in that position, the idea is, how can I use AI to accomplish my goals? And that's how I'm using it.
And it is also, by the way, I'll just mention Catherine again, because she came in and spoke about bias of AI, right? Like and unearthing those and knowing, understanding how to mitigate those and surfacing some things I sure hadn't seen before. But it's like a couple levels of bias, right? Because it's there's the bias of what the AI engines have been trained on and what they output, but there's also the bias of the person using it, right? And that bias isn't always things about like race and gender and things like that do come into play and the roles, but like, are you using AI for growth or destruction? Right?
But here's the thing, right? So I like to think of myself in the intersection of psychology and technology. You would experience that with people themselves. So the same way we have biases, we have our egos, we have our blind spots. We all do. Same thing with AI, to your point. That we have humans programming AI, so it's going to reflect unintentionally, usually subconsciously, their biases in the programming and the responses. So what I would push back to people on that is like, then you need to challenge those biases in the same way you do about the person in real time. Like if you have a preference for a certain response type, for example, if you're like, for example, my preference is more clear and direct and factual based because I'm a nerd that way. I train my AI to give me those kind of answers. If you want more colorful, flowery language or whatnot, and you train it to talk to you that way. Like I've worked with different managers, I've dated different women, and one idea that I had from both of those experiences in my work and my relationships, I think we should come with user manuals because everybody has a different way to work. Everybody has a different preferences, their styles, and like I said, there's not one size fits all. So in the same way, I've trained. I say my team. I've trained my team, and I'll show you some examples to go back to what we talked about. I've trained my team how to work with me and to call those biases because they're going to exist. Humans made it. It's going to have human tendencies, for better or for worse.
So yeah, and there is a question in the chat of walking us through how you'd approach getting a new client. Can you just dive in a little more about like what this process looks like?
So the way I look at it is, like I told you before in the beginning, how do I use AI to get the job done? So when you're prospecting a new client, you're doing research on that client. When you are networking to see who you know at that company or at that client that you can connect with, so you can learn more about the company and learn, so you can position yourself in the best way possible. You do your homework, you do your research, you do your homework, so you can do that. The great thing about AI, can do that for you. In Brad Braden's talk, he talked about a lot of evolutions in technology, right? And his recent book is about how Generation A is going to be Generation AI because of, their familiarity and their commonplace narrative of AI everywhere. We went from portal sites on AOL, on Yahoo, to search with, let's say, Google, let's say, Excite, Ask Jeeves. And then we went from individual technology to social. Now you have Friendster. Back in the day, you had MySpace and Facebook. And then we had, hey, look, Steve Jobs, we can put the knowledge of the world in the palm of your hands with the iPhone, right? And so I'm giving all these examples that Matt Brazen walks through his book, but I'm giving those examples because there's always going to be technology and we always adapt. Now, my thesis is we can either fight it or fear it, or we can use it to our advantage, whatever situation we mean, whether it's a job, career, prospecting for new clients. And I'm going to get into details with the prospecting clients, but the idea is you need to understand the mindset that I'm trying to go from. Yeah. So I'm an 80s kid. When I was in the 80s, I'm what they call an elder millennial, meaning that I was raised on action heroes. So the range I've seen from people I've talking to about AI, they either fear it like the Terminator or they adapt to it like RoboCop. So you need to decide which team you want to be on. Team Terminator or Team RoboCop? We're talking the originals, not the sequels.
So let's say we're all on Team RoboCop, and I think most of this room is.
Okay.
Now what do we do?
So you figure out what you're trying to accomplish, right? So for example, I've been talking to a lot of people. One use case that came up was, I'm trying to get into a new career path. There are platforms that I'm not familiar with. I'm like, great. So you can use AI for that. And they're like, wait, what do you mean? In the same way, you would hire somebody to do a job, whether that's a coach, a tutor, an expert, an assistant, an agent, whatever role that you need to hire somebody from, you can use that with AI. Now, I'm speaking specifically for the functionality of the custom GPTs in ChatGPT or GEMS in Gemini. I'm not sure about the other platforms, but the way my approach is, if I wanted to get help with something, who would I need and what would they need to know? That's how I approach it. So when I say hire AI as your guy, that's what I mean. So literally, and I think David has shown you this in the screenshots, but I've literally built, at this point, I'm running on about 40 custom GPTs for different purposes because I wanted to use them. For example, if I want to learn a new platform, right? My background is in analytics and technology. So popular platforms like Adobe Analytics or GA4, that big change from GA4, and tag managers like GTM or TLMIQ. I've literally built custom GPTs that are experts on those platforms. using all available resources that the companies provide. So instead of searching for information, what we do with Google, now you can have that information delivered to you in a way that you can digest. That's the mindset. So people are thinking specifics. You pull back from the specific questions and think about, what do you want to accomplish? You want to get new business clients? Then follow you in the space of prospecting, sales, biz dev, and build a custom GPT based on that personality. That's literally what I did for my career.
And so what are then, like, for like a biz dev GPT, like what are ingredients that go into it that make it different from what you just get from dealing with the regular chat GPT or a regular, just like the regular LLM model?
It's the best way I can describe it. And a lot of us here, I believe, are marketers or marketing adjacent. It's like the difference between using cookies and not cookies. So there's a big old cookie debate that we know that's going on, whether we're going to deprecate them, we're going to use them. But the initial intent for cookies was to be able to identify users across different devices. So when you go to Amazon knows who you are, can figure out what you like, and hopefully give you products and services that are tailored to what your preferences are based on your history. And when you don't have cookies, you have to sign in every time. You have to reintroduce yourself every time and whatnot. The benefits, what I would say, argue using something like Custom GPT or Gem, is the more you interact with it, the more you train it, the more it knows you. And that's the benefit. So my career coach I've been working with for a year, I started as a generic GPT, but then I wanted to have specific conversations on this one topic, and I wanted to have the memory for that one conversation. So that's why I created a separate entity. And I based it on a personality, Ramit Sethi, who I've been following for years now, to help craft the responses and the information that is freely available. I mean, content marketing, all the information is there, from video to audio and podcasts to blogs to the written word. It's all of it.
And so then, like, I mean, I'm just curious kind of like what that delta looks like ultimately in terms of like just, how, I mean, for something like that, are you then using it mainly for like writing custom cover letters, for searching which jobs to even apply for like doing research on a hiring manager,
Yes.
what are the main like sub tasks that
try
to get it
all the above? So everything has been an evolution. Before it was, how do I tweak my resume to better fit the job description, right? And you have to understand this has been an evolution in the last couple of months, not the last year or so, but just kind of use it in more and seeing how I can leverage it. So again, do the job for me and help me make my life a little easier. So for example, my career coach, I started with a generic, everybody like, hey, how to write my resume, how to write a cover letter. And I'm like, well, in order to know me, you have to know my history. Then, so I inputted my resume. Right. But then my resume is tailored because I've done a lot of work with a lot of brands, a lot of agencies. So I have to have my entire work history. So I added that to my custom GPT. And then it involves when I'm on talks with either hiring managers, potential clients, or, or recruiters. One of the questions that always came up very often was, what platforms do you use and what experience do you have? Whether it's GA4, Adobe, GTM, whatnot. And because of my experience in my career, I've worked with a lot of platforms, but I didn't have them outlined. So I created a spreadsheet of all the brands, agencies, and work I've done in my career. And because I've done consulting, contracting, full-time work, that's a lot. And I had them all in my head, and sometimes I put them in my resume, but it wasn't all in one place. So what I did, I created a spreadsheet, uploaded it to ChatGPT. So now when a recruiter asks me how many years of experience do you have with this certain platform, GPT knows the answer. And those are the kind of things that we have in our heads, but I'm just treating GPT as my second brain. And so I think one of the things I'm trying to push back on is people are asking these specific tactical questions, and I'm trying to get people to pull back and look at it strategically. What are you trying to accomplish, and how can it help you? For example, if you want to get in better shape, it's swimsuit season, it's summertime, you want to get back in shape. You can create a custom GPT and you provide whatever information you provide, very helpful, and you come sharing to help you give you a training regimen that's helpful for you digitally.
Yeah, because like, and this also where I think, in the chat, folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like there are lots of folks who would love to use ChatGPT and Gemini and whatnot for just even more aspects of the work, right? Like this is the lean in crowd, but yet not sure like where this is going to make that much of a difference. Like it's one thing to say like, okay, like sure, like use it to scan my resume, give me any feedback, or just some of this like one-off kind of thing. But then, but like what else can we be doing with it that we're missing? And there were even some things that you'd mentioned to me before of having different custom GPTs actually talk to each other and interact with each other. I mean, like that was new to me. So I'm curious about that.
So again, I would advocate to say that the more you use ChatGPT or any other platform, the more you use AI, the more beneficial it is, especially ones that have built-in the memory function. I think ChatGPT and Gem are the leaders on that in terms of the memory that they can store. But the more you use it, the better off they are. And so you point about the example. So I got the idea when I started working with a client. And the clients I work with, as we touched on before, have different platforms that they use on their tech stack. It can be an Adobe shop where they're using all the Adobe products, or they can be using primarily Google, like whether GA4, GTM, or Google Looker, for example. And for me, I've used all these tools in various ways on the spreadsheet I told you about. But some tools I know better than others because I've used them more, right, with different clients. So I thought, well, if I'm rusty on this platform, like say Google made the switch from Universal Analytics to GA4, well, I need to know GA4. And I can take a course, which I did. I can get certified, which I did. But I'm always going to have blind spots. I'm not going to know everything. So I created a custom GPT called GA4 Expert. Yeah. Why? Because, all I did was feed it information that's freely available online on Google, right? That has the blog posts, the communities on Reddit, on Quora, and all the forums like that, and all the information from their FAQs to their product releases. And the value of that is that I have a second brain that I can gut check. So when I work with clients and I can do research, instead of searching for their information on those different sources, whether it's the forums, whether it's on when their teaching sites or any other on their blogs, that information is being pulled to me and I can ask specific questions. That's the mindset I'm trying to get people to change.
Yeah. Are there any you want to show us or?
I'll give a good one. This is more or less professional, but you'll see how it ties in. So before I show you the example, I want to touch on the example that I showed you when you and I first connected. So because I work with different clients that are using different platforms for their marketing, for their MarTech or their ad tech, I created different experts on the different platforms. So when I'm coming up with a proposal to work with a client and they're using this specific tech stack, whether it's Adobe versus Google or anything in between, I created different experts, one in GTM, one in GA4, one in Google Looker Studio, and they talk to each other. That's my AI team. I built an AI team of experts, and they're sourcing it from the source. All right, but I can definitely give you an example of one of my favorites I had to show because it's on the lighter side of things, but you get an idea of how I work. So I love movies. All right, let's see right here. I love movies. And I've always loved movies since I was a kid. And so, like I said, I think of AI as my team, an extension of myself, of my interest in what I'm into. You can see right here some of the AIs. Like I said, I have a stable of about 40 AI. These are not all of them, but these are some of the things I use the most often. So for any platform that I use or for, any interest that I have, I've created an AI, a GPT, a custom GPT to help answer those questions. And the one I wanted to show you was the movie and TV experts. Okay. So, like I said, I love movies, I love TV, and I would spend time on sites like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Fandango. And here's the difference from what we usually do. We go to search, or we have it bookmarked. We go to those regular sites, whether it's Wikipedia, Rotten Tomatoes, or any of those other sites related to movies. I created a custom GPT called my movie and TV expert, working on the branding, that can pull in all the information that I can ask. So ask me any question about a movie and it'll surely answer.
How much money did Home Alone make?
All right. So one of the things as you
1990, the food office got it all. Reality check. He won the holiday movie. Home Alone was a box office wrecker, a low-budget, kid-centric slapstick comedy from John Hughes writer and Chris Columbus director that went on to absolutely dominate the early 90s. Why it matters. It turned Macaulay Culkin into a megastar overnight, redefined the holiday movie genre, and became an annual staple. It also proved that family films could bring in grown-up money. Key details. Budget, $18 million. Worldwide gross, $476.7 million. $285.7 million domestic US and Canada. $191 million international. It was the highest-grossing live-action comedy of all time until The Hangover Part 2 dethroned it in 2011. It stayed at first at the US box office for 12 straight weeks. Wild. Streaming and watch info. Check it out on Real Good. It rotates between Disney Plus, it's a Fox film, now Disney-owned, and other platforms around the holidays. Fun fact, Macaulay Culkin was paid just $100,000 for Home Alone. For the sequel, he got $4.5 million. That's what we call a Kevin McPaycheck.
Does that answer your question?
Can I ask a question about that? The response?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what if I had just typed that question into Chat GPT without, directing it specifically to an expert that, an AI expert, would it have given me the same information?
I'm sure it could have. We can compare right now. Just didn't think there was a good spread, but we can do it right now. But let's see.
Home Alone, 1990. Made $476.7 million worldwide at the box office. Domestic US and Canada, $285.8 million. International, $190.9 million. It was the highest grossing live-action comedy of all time until it was surpassed by The Hangover Part 2 in 2011. Factoring in inflation, Home Alone remains one of the most profitable comedies ever made.
So yeah, I mean, in this one, it seems like because it knows, I guess the custom GPT knows that you're such an enthusiast, like it's giving you the director's cut answer almost, like
right.
that.
And that's a distinction, right? And that's a great question, by the way. Lisa, that was a great question. The difference is, like I told you for the example of the cookies, when I use a custom GPT, I've built it and I've taught it and I've trained it to answer in a way that I prefer. And that's a distinction, right? So yes, if you use a regular ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, it'll give you a generic answer. And that's fine if that's what your needs are. But like I said, I'm an enthusiast and I want to know all those little director's cut information that I find really interesting. That's the distinction.
So what's the source on that? Well, how do you have to input it, or it just looks at the general internet to get that information?
Well, the way, I'll show you the little inside of the gut so you can get an understanding. But like I said, so to give you some context, my whole theory is that we need to build, teach, and train AI to support us in whatever way we need, right? Whatever goal you want to have accomplished. And the same way you would hire somebody else to help you, whether it's a coach, tutor, assistant, or, an expert. And so for me, one of the resources I found really helpful in my journey was reading Google's Gemini prompt engineering resource. And I'll work with David to share that with the rest of the group after the call. But I'll show you the inside working of this custom GPT to answer your question. So this is a blowout of the instructions I gave it. So I teach it how to respond. Literally, this is how to respond and what are some of the sources. And here's the thing that makes it different. I think that's the thing I would normally do by myself. But because of AI's capabilities, instead of my going to find it or search for it, it pulls it in. So like I mentioned before, the other sources, IMDb, Wikipedia, YouTube, Box Office Mojo, Real Good, Ranker, Fandom, all these different sites that are movie related, that if you're a movie enthusiast, you would pull in, you would do searching anyways. For example, if you're a big sports fan, you would know all the regular sites that you want to know. So know what the latest game is, or what's the score, or what are the stats. It's the same concept. And the way that I found really that resonates with people is to think about, if you're hiring somebody to do a job, you're not using a tool, you're building a team. If you're hiring somebody, what would you want them to know? And how would you want them to work with you? That's the distinction.
Hey, Earle. So, Earle, I have a contextual. Can I ask a contextual rather than a factual question?
Sure.
The film Friendship was just released.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a boomer.
Sure.
My history with movies is more like Animal House in terms of comedies.
It's a classic.
As a boomer, would this film Friendship be targeted to me? And what would I like it, not like it?
And that's up to you. You see, that's the thing. So again, you have to build it, teach.
I would ask, that's a question I would ask ChatGPT, and I feel like I would get an answer back from ChatGPT on that.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm not saying
Based on my own, based on
one's better than others. All I'm saying is that if you built a custom GPT or Gem or any other platform that you use that has memory, you're training it for your preferences. I'm not saying ChatGPT generically doesn't answer your question or get you what you need to know. That's not my argument. My argument is that once it gets to know you and you give it information, it can help provide better personalized answers to you. So for example, give you a concrete example, my career, this is probably one of my first GPTs that I built, because again, I was using it for prospecting, job search, etc. One of the things I inputted with, like I said, I have a background in psychology. I took a lot of personality tests, battery tests, so that way I can learn how I work, because everybody's a little different, everybody's wired a little differently. And like, for example, I'm more extroverted, introverted, I'm more direct and clear. That's just my personality. So I put that into this custom GPT. So then when it gives me responses, it takes that into consideration when I ask it to look over a job or to give me feedback or to make sure I'm not missing anything. Does that make sense? So again, the distinction is you can use ChatGPT however you want. I'm not saying you should use it my way, but I'm saying if you hire it instead of using it as a tool, it becomes beneficial to you because it's more personalized to you. And in order to do that, you need to, if you want to build it, you can build it. I can help you do that if you want, but you need to build it. You need to teach it and train it. Like, for example, I don't like soft answers. I literally hate the word fluff. And I literally told it, do not use the word fluff. I don't even like marshmallows. And so literally it knows not to use the word fluff in its responses to me. Again, I'm teaching it how to work with me. In the same way you would teach an intern, the same way you would teach a new hire. In the same way you work with a coach, if you want to get in shape, if you want to learn a new skill set, you need to help GPT learn how you work so you can help you accomplish your goals. That's the distinction.
Hey, Earle.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
you know what I'm talking about.
Hi, my friend. Hey, so just for context, Earle and I met and we kind of exchanged thoughts on this space, and talking about custom chat GPTs, I've evolved since you and I talked. And so one of the things that I did was I asked ChatGPT to write the code or write in the SAS language that would help me get the most out of a custom chat GBT.
There you go.
So I don't know if that's something that you would promote as a good idea as well. So in that box where you showed us the detail of what you want the chat GBT to look like, it rewrote it and used all the funky code.
Yeah, exactly. And this can get very meta. To your point, thank you, Amy, for reminding me of that. So again, you've got to build it, you've got to teach it, you got to train it. And the great thing is that you can have resources that you can use. I'll give you a concrete example to go off Amy's point. So as we know with ChatGPT, you need to ask the right questions to get the right responses for what you're looking for, right? And that's standard on every AI platform you're going to use. So let's see if I can find the one I'm thinking about right now. Oh, yeah. So I literally, because I'm me, I was like, okay, well, there are great resources available. Google has a great prompt engineering guide. I think I shared with you, Amy, that tells you how to best write a prompt so you can get the answers you want. So I've built a custom GPT specifically for prompt engineering and for creating other custom GPTs. So now when I create like a movie, like for example, I was talking to somebody just meeting from networking, and they're based in Denver and they like to ski. In 10 minutes, I can create a custom GPT that can answer any ski related question in the Denver area. Because I've created the generic instructions here. And to your point about adding additional information that can help answer those questions, I literally have the Google Workspace guys, which is the prompt engineering guide that I keep referring to. And then also I created a custom GPT template based on what I've built and what's worked for me. And that's the benefit, right? So for example, I'll show you one example from my career one, just to give you.
If I could just kind of double tap into that part of it. Adding a PDF I've done before, and then to give it background and context for what I'm asking for. Do it really around marketing and branding specifically. But when I want it to engage with, let's say, an online knowledge base or some sort of wiki or something like that, like I wasn't sure how you add that other than I'm adding it in the prompt. And I feel like that's like a kindergartner way to do it. And I'm just wondering if you could educate us about what, for those online resources, what is the best way to pull that in into the context of what the answers might be for that specific agent.
I love it. It's a great question. I technically already answered it with the movie and TV example. So that's how you do it. So in the movie TV example, I literally included sources and references that it should be using. So all the sites that I mentioned for movie buffs, whether it's IMDb, Fandango.
Right. But was that part of your build? I was a little confused about when that information was added.
I put it in.
Okay.
So when I'm creating a custom GPT, for example, I'll give you an example. So for example, I built a custom GPT for GTM, right? So I Google, what are some good resources for GTM? You know, you have the blog, you have their site, you have all the training courses, you have all these YouTube channels. And I was like, I took those and put it into the profile. and so like literally.
Again, as part of the setup.
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So in the same way you put the PDF in the file section for your GPT, you put in any other resource, especially online, that you can use as it factors in.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. And I think I just want to touch on really briefly on the one that I've probably used the most, and to give you an idea of like some of the things that you can put into your custom GPT or your gem, for however you want to do it. But I'm going to say the PDS, excuse me. Okay. So like I mentioned before, if I'm working with a career coach and I've done some research and I've worked with them before, like real life people, it's doing the same thing that if I was working with somebody in real time, in real life, that's what I would be doing. They'd be looking at my LinkedIn profile. You look at my entire resume history, my work experience. This is the table I mentioned before about all the different clients I've worked with, the different platforms I've used, and how much years of experience I've had using different platforms. This is what I created. And these up here, these are all my personality tests that I've taken throughout the years. I'm really fascinated by it. I like psychology. So I was like, oh, what's my MBTI? What's my Myers-Briggs? Those are the kind of questions I want to ask. And the reason why I added that level of references to my career coach, because I want the advice that I get is not to be generic. I want it to be personalized to me. So when literally now, to give you a use case example, because I know people want details on specifics, when I look at a job, I can literally cut and paste the link to the job post or just copy and paste the job post, and it will give me a breakdown of why this job is good or why it doesn't work for me and why it'd be a good fit for me or not. Happy to give live examples and demos, but that's a general idea.
Earle, can I ask you if you have any concerns about uploading your private information to, ChatGPT and any other ones that you're using?
I understand that people have different levels of comfort with that. I don't. I work in data. If somebody wants your data, they're going to get it. Sorry, I don't mean to sound nihilistic about it, but I've been to the dark side of the web. I've been on the light side of the web, and I assure you that if somebody wants your data, they're going to get it. So for me, you have to balance your need for, security and privacy with your need for convenience, expedition, and speed. And I can't tell you what the right answer is for that. But as you can tell by my answer, I veer on the side of convenience. Like I'd rather share what information is going to be helpful to help personalize my experience so I can get the job done faster. But I also understand, and I've talked to potential clients that I'm, talking to, their job model is built on security, privacy. And so they have to be concerned about that. So you have to be intentional with the platforms that you're using and how they're going to handle the data of their data for the business and for their clients. And I totally understand that. So for me, it really depends on the context and your level of comfort. And again, it's not one size fits all. Like, for example, I don't care if ChatGPT knows my movie preferences. What are you going to do with that information? Yes, I like Home Alone 2. Yes, I prefer RoboCop over Terminator. Okay, right? So you got to decide, again, it's your comfort level. I'm not going to tell you that one way works better than the other, but you need to decide what you feel comfortable sharing. But I assure you that if somebody wants to get that information, they can get it. I work in data. I assure you on this one.
Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. It was a conversation, guys. Any questions are welcome. Any demos that you want to see. But like I said,
I have a question as well.
sure.
So since you brought up the career consulting one, I'm, someone that a lot of folks want support from, and I wish I could clone myself so I could help everybody. So I literally actually, yeah, no, I know. But I'm curious if you are charging or know anyone charging for custom GPTs, because I built them, but I don't feel like they're at a place where I could charge for them, but maybe this is a limiting belief. So I would love to hear your perspective or clients that are charging for custom GPTs.
It's funny. I built I built a ChatGPT to help with those limiting beliefs. So I can share that with you after the call.
Cool, that's great. And still to my question, do you know anyone charging for custom GPT?
Yes, I am, and I know other people in the space who are. And so what I've been doing is, and Amy can see this. I haven't charged Amy or whatnot, but what I've been doing is talking to people to understand what are some of their pain points, what are some of their goals that they're trying to accomplish, and where they are in terms of their experience with ChatGPT or with AI in general, and their comfort with it. And because I'm not trying to say like one way is the best way, like I mentioned before, but if anybody can get like a tenth of the benefits I've had from using ChatGPT, a custom GPT, and I'm sure you know this, I want to be able to show them how to do it in a way that makes sense. I see people spending thousands of dollars on coaches and programs and courses, for example, and they're great and it's great content. But if they're not customized to your needs or tailored to where you are or how you work, they're not as valuable. I've taken a lot of certification courses. I've been working with a couple of coaches. Again, the benefit of using a custom GPT or a gem is that it is tailored to your needs and your goals. And that's how I sell it, to answer your question.
That's awesome.
That's why I pitch it.
Yeah, and I'm curious around the price point. Like you could share a range if you don't want to say exact prices.
I'm
but
not there yet. We just met. I'm not there yet.
Okay. Then
we can talk offline though. I can definitely share that.
Yeah. And last thing is like, what's the interface for the person who is interacting with the custom GPT? Like, do you package it and put it into a nice little app looking thing, or are they literally just interacting with it in the OpenAI interface and environment?
It depends on the client and depends on the needs. Like I said, I work with individual clients and I work with business clients. It really depends on the use case, but I try to default in the simplest mode ever. So I default to this because it's widely available. But again, I've talked to, different companies and different clients who have higher needs, like say security and privacy. So it has to be internal to what their needs are and using their internal systems and using like an LLM, their internal LLM. So it really depends on the use case. But I default, especially for people who are not as comfortable with technology, or even if they are, there's a lot of information out there when it comes to AI and you don't know where to start. Start where you are and build it as you go. Again, you have to build it, you have to teach it, you have to train it. Again, my philosophy is not one size fits all. Like I try to tailor my approach based on what I know and based on what you share with me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe let me know if like you got that feedback from me when we spoke, but let me know what your thoughts are because we've actually talked about this. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. If you're still online.
Say that again.
I was asking you to get some of your feedback on the call that we had regarding use of AI. I want to get your thoughts on it. Like I said, I don't think of an approach, but I'll show you how to think about AI so you can use it in a way that makes sense for you.
Sure. So one of the things I've thought about after we met is, and I hope it's okay to share this, is sort of this idea of reverse mentoring, right? We're of a different generation. I'm older than you, and my approach to things might be different. But it was so good and refreshing to talk to someone who's very different from me and has your mindset, so I could learn from you. And I hope that you could learn from me. Mm-hmm. So I encourage all of us to find that person that we can talk to each other about topics where we have completely different viewpoints and experience, especially when it comes to AI, and then exchange ideas. So since then, since I talked to you, I've completely embraced my co-pilot, my team member, right? I gave him a name, and I had just to share with the group. I would love to know what other people's experience is. I've had this revelation where my custom chat GPT is making me softer and think differently about things. So I feed it like, I got this email response. What does this mean? and it tells me something different than what I was thinking. And hey, I need to respond to this, and I'm kind of keyed up. How can I soften this to respond back? And it helps me soften. So it's some unexpected benefits that I had no idea would be coming my way.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Amy, sincerely. And I love you brought up that use case, because one thing I didn't mention in my, in the conversation was the idea of similar to you, Amy, I've been using AI as a thought partner. I know my way is not the only way. I know my approach might not be, let's say, digestible for some people. So I need to be able to adapt. Going back, David, what you said earlier in the call, we all have our biases. We all have our preferences. We all have our different ways of navigating the world, understanding the world, right? And I welcome all those different point of views. But because of my worldview, I might have a blind spot, or my ego might be involved, or I might have biases because I'm human. So one of the benefits of using it like Amy has and I have, using AI as a thought partner, it helps exposes my biases or where my tone may be interpreted differently. I can have the best of intention, but you may have a different interpretation, and it may come off not in a way that's not the best way for you. And so one of the benefits of having a thought partner when I'm writing or responding to people, that's how I use AI as well. So Amy, thank you for that. And again, the more you use it, the more you learn it, you can start to figure out how else you can use it.
I can share with you my experience. I have a set of tools that does a version of what you say. You curate your content. While you curate, you can apply custom prompt to save all of it or a version of it.
Yeah.
And then you can feed that into your own custom GPT and generate answers from it.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I noticed that's interesting, AI always answers questions. So I have one knowledge base that has a lot of different types of information on politics, philosophy. I have about 1,000 different sources in this knowledge base. And what I found is that when you ask the question, it always generates the answer based on your question, even though the context, talking to what Jack was saying, may be different. So the source, when you actually listen to the content, it's the meaning of what they want to convey is different than what the GPT, it alludes to it, but it doesn't always get it right. So one of the things that is always convincing to people, I feel, is because it always is generating its answers directly to your question, and it's formulating it in a way that you want to hear it. And that's what makes people satisfied, I suppose. And it's important also to be cognizant that there are biases in there and how the whole system actually works. And the best way to find that out is if you create your own knowledge base of content that you're familiar with, because then when the answer comes, you also have an expectation of what it should be, or at least you can go to the source of the information and check to see what they're talking about. And that gives you a much better understanding of the capability of AI.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And sorry, Google's listening. That's another use case that I didn't actually highlight, but I want to emphasize before we head out. But one of the things I've been using AI for is essentially my second brain. This is a concept developed by Tiago Forte, and he has this whole idea of how do we use technology to input all the ideas that we have or that we've been exposed to, whether it's from reading, lectures, conversations like we're having now, and put it somewhere that we trust. Your note-taking tool, how to organize it. He has a whole system behind it. I won't even go into that. But the way I've borrowed his concept of building a second brain, I've done that with my custom ChatGPTs. So all the mental models, all the frameworks, all the ideas that I got from the books that I've read, like I can literally walk you guys through. This was my thought process after the conversation from Matt Britton, the AI Insiders talk. How would I frame some of the ideas that I have regarding how I use AI? And I'm pulling in ideas from different books. Like, for example, one of the things that David touches on quite a bit, I think Matt Britton did as well. One of the things is that we don't want to lose our humanity, right? And that's one of the things that AI can never replicate. And Dan Pink, I think he did a TED Talk back in 2004, and I'll check with ChatGPT later. But he did a TED Talk talking about, he wrote a book called Right Brain Thinking. And basically the idea was that there are going to be 3 A's that are going to get in the way of changing our lives. And this was 20 years ago. So it's actually coming to fruition now. He called it the 3 A's. Abundance is going to be abundance of information, content marketing. We can see that everywhere. All these different platforms, all these different vendors and partners saying that they have the right answer for your solutions. We live in an age of abundance. And now we have to filter out what's the signal from the noise. That's his first A. The second A was Asia. What he meant by that is that a lot of jobs are being outsourced to Southeast Asia. And, all the work that we don't want to do, the technical work or whatnot, expertise, we've been outsourcing that. I'm definitely seeing it on the agency side, and I'm also seeing it on the brand side as well, right? And that's just the way it works. That's where the global markets are. We are outsourcing a lot of some of our work from domestically to international markets because it's cheaper. It's more cost effective. It is what it is. And the last thing was automation. He didn't predict this at the time, but now we are where we are. He was just talking about automations and processes, systems, tools, technology, and now we have AI. And this is why we're here. We're interested in it because we know like AI is automation at its core. So because of that, he was arguing that there are certain human skill sets, like our creativity, our critical thinking, our ability to synthesize information that are uniquely human, that are the emotions. AI can't do that. It can replicate it as best it can, but it can't do that. So going back to my RoboCop versus Terminator, how can we take the best of humanity and the best of technology to accomplish our goals?
I love that, Earl. And this is, I mean, definitely inspiring a lot here. I feel like I need to send you the chat thread after so you can respond to folks. How can, and sorry for everyone. I love that people were just jumping in today. We didn't need to call on them. Like it was just it was a community conversation is exactly what we're talking about. And so that means that some of the questions, unfortunately, we can't get to everything. But Earl, what's the best way for people to follow you, get in touch with you, continue the conversation?
That's a great question. Hold on.
ChatGPT. That's good.
No, my link tree is probably the best way. I'm simply something really quickly. The best way is going to be my link tree. That has all my contact information. The best way to reach me is going to be through my LinkedIn profile. I'm pretty sure it's included in the description. But if you message me on LinkedIn, that's how Amy did it. And I know a couple other people after some of our talks have done it. I can go ahead. We can get the conversation started there. It's, my LinkedIn profile is probably the best way to start. And then we can continue the conversation there. I'm happy to hop on one-on-one conversations. And again, I can give you specific examples, but I guess I want to push back and say it's not about the specific use case. It's about how to think about using an AI and how to apply it to what you need, whether it's in your business or with your personal life. And so I can help talk you through that. And I'm happy to offer people 30 minutes just to talk about it. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but AI can do a lot. And I played around with it a lot. And it's helped me in my different areas of my life.
Amazing. Well, thank you for helping us and inspiring us. And yeah, thanks everyone for just some amazing questions and comments coming in. And I need to go through the chat myself because there were great book references and other kinds of recommendations coming in. So might need to get ChatGPT to compile all those and share them back out to the community. But Earl, thank you. Next week also we got Chris Hewer coming in from his team flow perspective. Make sure you check the Luma/IMG, AMG. Yeah, great to see everyone, and hope to see some of you in person during New York Tech Week if you're around. And this is just terrific. So it's why I get so excited for Wednesdays at noon Eastern. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Since you're pushing, love the questions. Appreciate the conversation.